And you can see we just started recording, so this link will be available to share if you want to re-listen to it or share with others who weren't able to join at 4:30. So before we start our panel and hear from a few special people who are joining us today, I'd like to welcome Chelsea to come on. She is our tech host for today and will share some quick Zoom tips with us.
Good evening, and it's nice to see so many faces. Thank you for your bravery in turning on your cameras. It really helps us engage with the night, and we love to see you. So thank you so much. I'm sure we're also familiar, but just a few small reminders. For most of this evening, we suggest that you put it on speaker view so that you can see the presentation, and then you can change it to gallery view for our Q&A so we can all see one another. For discussion, we really do encourage you that your video is on. You might get muted by us, so just check your audio settings before you ask any questions. Make sure that you're muted during the presentation. Questions for Joe and our team can be added into the chat box. Just direct them to everyone and we'll be able to see them, or you can ask them in person when we have that time together. If you're having any trouble, please feel free to send me a private chat and I'll be able to troubleshoot that for you. And just as a reminder, we are recording this, so it will be up on YouTube later, as well as streamed to Facebook later this week. Lastly, I'll be putting in a survey chat in the survey link in the chat for you, because we want to hear from you and what topics you are interested in and value. So thanks so much. Back to you, Tammy.
Thank you, Chelsea. Well, today we are taking a brief look at how faith influences the work we do to bring life-saving medical care to people in crisis, and why faith and faith leaders are relevant to health at all. So, as we are hearing from our speakers today, I encourage you to write down any questions that may come to mind, and then you may enter them in the chat at any time, or you may turn on your camera at the end and have a chance to speak them out loud. So to begin, I would like to introduce you to Joe DiCarlo and Byron Calel. Joe has been leading at Medical Teams for over 20 years and currently serves as Medical Teams Global Ambassador, where he builds faith partnerships both domestically and internationally. And Byron serves with Medical Teams International in Guatemala as the Channels of Hope specialist. Dr. Walter Lopez is also joining us this evening, our Guatemala country manager, and he will be helping us translate today. So, Joe, to start us off, why should we engage faith leaders in the areas where we work? How is this relevant?
Well, thank you, Tammy, and welcome everyone. I think it's really important to begin to look at why faith is important in what we do and why engage the faith community. The Pew Research Institute in 2012, they had a forum on religion and public life, and they came out with some very interesting statistics. 85% of the world associates themselves with a particular religion. That may not surprise us. But then it goes to, in Africa, 74% of the people in Africa trust their faith leader more than anyone else in society. And it's not just Africa, there are other places as well where the faith leader has a prominent role in society. The survey highlighted that faith leaders are gatekeepers in the community. They have unparalleled influence. And they can put up barriers to any kind of health messaging that directly impacts the health of women and children, but what they believe might be against their faith. So they could put up those barriers, or they can actually block any kind of health messaging going to the community. So by engaging with the faith leaders and working alongside medical teams, we have much greater opportunities for success and involvement when you use the congregation within the community itself.
Thank you, Joe. That's encouraging to hear. Byron, we would love to hear from you. So tell us more. What is Channels of Hope and how is it being used in Guatemala?
Good evening, everyone. I am so happy for staying here with all of you. Channels of Hope is a methodology for working with faith leaders to empower faith leaders by addressing their misconception about issues such as maternal, newborn, and childhood.
Yeah. Byron, do you have some, when we spoke earlier, you had some slides that I think you wanted to share with all of us that I found very useful. I think everyone might enjoy seeing those as well.
Okay. Disculpe, doctor Walter López.
Please let me know when you can see my screen. Are you watching my screen?
Yes, thumbs up.
Ok,
You got some other thumbs up? Yep.
listo, Byron. Aquí está la presentación. Me dices cuando vaya avanzando.
Muy bien, gracias. In this PowerPoint we made for you, say what is Channels of Hope? It's a methodology for working with faith communities, to faith leaders, to empower faith leaders by addressing their misconceptions about issues such as maternal, newborn, and childhood. We want to change how they are thinking about these issues. Next, please. In Channels of Hope, there are 4 steps very important. The first, preparing. Some of the medical teams staff received the induction in Tanzania. Then they transfer the information to train new leaders to facilitate the Channels of Hope methodology. Second, catalyze. We went to Chicamán, where we are working, and catalyze a new group of faith leaders to bring Channels of Hope to the congregations of the communities where we are served as medical teams. Third, the strategy. Defining the strategy, chat groups were formed to address maternal and childhood issues at the community level, and the evangelical and Catholic churches of this place where we are working. Fourth, empower. In the chat groups, a congregational action plan was defined. This plan will serve to reduce maternal and infant mortality and the rates of malnutrition in children under 2 years of age. Next, please. We are working in Chicamán, El Quiché, Guatemala, in 12 communities. In the FY and the fiscal year 2020, we prepared and catalyzing the faith leaders. In the fiscal year 2021, we made the strategy and empower with the faith leaders. In the fiscal year 2022, we are following up
You got it.
the topics about Channels of Hope. This area, these 12 villages in Chicamán are, they are isolated with little access to health, in a situation of poverty, in post-war conditions, and with high rates of maternal and child mortality and malnutrition in children under 2 years of age. And next, please. In Channels of Hope, we are learning about the Bible, the cross, the light, and the family. The light for us is wisdom for us, wisdom from the Bible. Those four symbols, they are very important for Channels of Hope. Next, please. In this year, 2022, we are working in 11 communities, 23 churches. They are support Channels of Hope, sharing the Channels of Hope topics, and following up their congregational action plan. Next, please. In the congregational action plan, the faith leaders are improve little ideas for their partners in the village. In this picture, we are visit mothers with children with under bajo peso, disculpe.
Underweight or chronic malnutrition.
Underweight. Next, please. This is the plan for fiscal year 2022. We coming up the follow up with the faith leaders in the 12 communities. We started to work, and we want to start with 8 new communities, making all the steps with them: the preparing, the catalyze, the strategy, and empower. And the last, please. Juntos promovemos la vida en toda su plenitud para las madres y los niños para quienes estamos trabajando. This is reflection verse in Isaiah 32, start 15 to 20. Thanks, all of you.
Byron, thank you. That verse, Dr. Walter, I was trying to translate with my best Spanish, but did it say something about together we promote the health of, can you translate that Isaiah verse in English? That was beautiful, Byron.
Yeah, you were saying good. So together we promote the life in a whole, it's plenty for mothers and children.
I love that, Byron, when you mentioned the wisdom from the Bible on that slide with the cross, the light, the family. And so I'm imagining then that verse is one of those, the wisdom and how that is positively impacting the life of mothers and children. Can you share with I see your head nodding. So that was a yes for those of you who have your calorie view on. Byron was nodding yes. I would love to know, how has this program made a difference in the communities? Like how is that wisdom impacting, and is it improving the lives of mothers and children? Is it making a difference in malnutrition in those underweight babies? Can you share with us a story?
Byron, la pregunta es, ¿cómo esta metodología está cambiando la vida de las personas o de las familias? ¿Cómo esto está haciendo la diferencia?
¿Puede usted ayudarme a traducir?
Claro.
Gracias. En el principio notamos cuando llegamos a las comunidades que la participación de las mujeres era muy poca. Estaba limitada.
Yeah, before the implementation of this strategy, we learned and we realized at the community level that the women participation was very low.
Y ahora podemos ver en nuestras reuniones grupos completos de grupos chat. Eso para mí es una gran diferencia y me agrada ver la participación de la mujer en las comunidades rurales.
After the Channels of Hope implementation, we can see now how the women are participating in a several number of community groups, you know, expressing their needs and having a voice at community level.
Cuando iniciamos Canales de Esperanza, algunos líderes tienen la mentalidad de los mitos, es muy real en Guatemala.
So the other thing is that some faith leaders or some community leaders are having a lot of myths regarding the health at the communities in Guatemala.
Y ahora cuando hablamos de los temas de Canales de Esperanza, junto con estas reflexiones como que juntos promovemos el bienestar y la salud para las familias, los mismos líderes que antes tenían mucha fe en los mitos, ahora están recomendando a las comunidades que debemos dejar de creer en los mitos.
Yes, after the process, you know, the leaders are sharing with the families that we need to leave or abandon some beliefs or misconceptions they have at the community level.
Otra diferencia y también muy importante aquí en Guatemala, católicos y evangélicos trabajando juntos, planificando juntos. Eso es muy diferente en Canales de Esperanza.
Another success is that now Catholic leaders and evangelical leaders are working together for the health at the community level. So that is a big difference because they are working together now.
Wow,
Gracias.
Byron. Yeah, gracias. Thank you for sharing that. Joe, before we turn it over to all of you, be thinking about your questions for Byron or Joe. Joe, tell us, is the influence of faith leaders on health issues, is this only relevant in Guatemala? Can you tell us, is this the only place where we use this program?
Yes, Tammy, thank you for asking. We're actually implementing Channels of Hope in Tanzania, in 2 communities there, one being the refugee camp. And this year we're launching in Lebanon this fiscal year. You know, there could be cultural and religious practices that actually hinder access to health for women and children. And the same can happen here as well. We're actually using elements of this methodology in our US programs in terms of vaccination campaigns. You know, holding vaccination clinics in a church where the pastor is getting vaccinated and people can come to a place that they're familiar and with people that they know, feeling more comfortable about receiving the vaccine. And so it's not something that we can point to another country and say, oh, look what we're doing there. We need it here as well. It's very important to engage with the faith community. I will actually say too, USAID and other institutional donors are officially recognizing, including the Gates Foundation, officially recognizing the importance of engaging with the faith community because of the influence that's known that they have over the ability for women and children to get access to healthcare services.
Wow, thank you, Joe. Again, that's really, really encouraging. So I want to open it up to all of you. We have about 10 minutes left. If you have some questions, let's see, I'm going to open the chat here. I see some things. Let's see, no questions in the chat yet.
Hi, this is Phyllis. I'll just ask out loud then. And thanks for all the work that is being done in Guatemala and how wonderful to have such a wise strategy moving forward to help women and children. But just maybe if you could tell us a little bit about the medical situation, are these all home deliveries? And is there an immunization, traveling immunization clinics? What's sort of the base health that exists now in the community?
Yeah, maybe I can share with you. Thank you for your questions. You know, Guatemala is struggling a lot with the access for health services in these communities. Just to say, for example, in Guatemala, there are like 22,000 medical doctors in the whole country. 80% of them are in big cities, like the capital city and everything. So less than 10, 15% of medical doctors are working in remote communities like where we are working, for example. So the antenatal care, the family planning services is very difficult. Some families have to walk or travel more than 2 hours, 3 hours, walking or by vehicle to go to a health post. This is why it's very important to disseminate information, you know, to prevent and to recognize the risk signs in this population. Through Channels of Hope, the faith leaders are being empowered to educate the families in very difficult topics or challenging topics like family planning, for example. Now, after the Channels of Hope strategy, the faith leaders are promoting family planning, are promoting the antenatal care, are encouraging the husbands to take their wives to the health posts, for example, or to support the woman at the household level, dividing the work or helping them, the woman to be in a better condition. It's because the lack access for health services is a challenge. This program is linked to another big program, maternal and child program that Medical Teams is implementing in the communities. You know, it's not only Channels of Hope. So we are trying to improve the access for maternal and child health services. And we are having success. You know, we have a program like 8 years in this area, and we have evaluations showing that we reduce the diarrhea, we reduce pneumonia, which are the main causes of childhood mortality, for example. We are increasing the access for antenatal care and other services. But with the support of faith leaders, we are increasing those indicators.
Thank you, Dr. Walter. We've got,
Tammy?
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
I have a question for Joe. He mentioned Channels of Hope in Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you expand on that a little bit, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just beginning there, Linda, and we've hired our Channels of Hope coordinator for the team. We're working alongside with World Vision and getting some inputs from them as well. But our goal is to gather the faith leaders in the refugee spontaneous settlements. So we're talking Muslim, and being able to identify the healthcare needs and have the faith leader promoting access to care, messages, healthcare messages to those communities. We are also working with the local churches in Lebanon to provide them the training as well. This is our plan, so that they too will have that skill set to be able to go throughout their communities as well and engage in this way. I will say in Tanzania, the refugee camp of 160,000 people has 155 faith congregations, Christian and Muslim. And we brought those faith leaders together to spend the week in providing this training. And it was the first time they've been together, because in the camp they're segregated, and the first time that they're working together, Christian and Muslim. And for what better purpose, as was said already in Guatemala, to improve the health of women and children. So there's a peace building underlying theme here that's at play. And we want to launch this in Lebanon as well, primarily Muslim, but we want to engage the churches as well in the training so that they'll be available for them as well.
Great, thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you. Let's see, we've got another question here. Joe, is the support for integrating faith communities by USAID and the Gates Foundation, is that fairly new? Have they changed? Has that been a change in their position?
It is. It is I was in a symposium hosted by USAID on faith and programming. And USAID, this was last October, came out a year ago, October, and said, engaging with the faith community is considered a best practice. And that usually, when you have a separation of church and state and the government and the funding, there's been a clear separation. Now they're re-looking at that. And in Linda and in the Gates Foundation as well, they are also promoting engaging faith communities in the areas where we work, all the faiths.
Oh, thank you. I think you mostly answered this question, but want to see if there's anything you want to add to it. This is also about Channels of Hope in Lebanon. How is that being modified as we're working with Syrian Muslims?
Yes, we have two different modules or curriculums. So our guiding principles if they're Christian, comes from the Bible. The guiding principles, if Muslim, come from the Quran. But the guiding principles are essentially the same. We are all created in the image of God. We are created in the image of Allah. There's a whole list that I could show of the guiding principles and the references. We stand up for justice. We support women and children. We value their health and their well-being. And each day of the training, a faith leader's responsibility is to give a devotional in the morning on one of those guiding principles. So we are looking at our spiritual texts that we value and live by, and we begin to realize maybe our culture or our practices are not aligned with our guiding principles from our own scriptures. One example I can give, a very common thing in Tanzania was a faith leader would tell the woman, do not go to the health facility if you're not well, but come to the church because we'll pray. If you go to the health facility, you're denying the power of God and the power of prayer. But through Channels of Hope, we're able to address some of those practices, religious practices and cultural practices that are hindering access to care. And now these are changing within the society.
Have you seen, this is a good segue from that. Have you seen different faith leaders of different faiths come together for the sake of the community health? Do you have any examples there?
I was in, yes, I have. Frankly, one pastor I want to share with you is Emac Jackson. He's a Congolese refugee. He's been in Tanzania for 22 years as a refugee. He pastors a church of about 150 people in the refugee camp. He was at the training, and on Monday he said, what is Medical Teams going to do to prevent 14-year-olds from getting married and being abused by their older husbands? By Thursday, through the week of training, he stood up and looked at all the other faith leaders and said, what are we going to do to prevent 14-year-olds from getting married and being abused by their older husbands? He went from a refugee without resource, without power, and began to realize through our trainings that he does have tremendous resource. He does have tremendous influence, and he can make a difference. He and his congregation can make a difference in their community.
Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Dr. Walter. Thank you, Byron. We are at 5 o'clock, so I want to respect everyone's time. We do have another question in the chat. I want to leave space if people have additional questions, but also want to give you the opportunity. It's completely fine if you need to and would like to log off at this time. We're so happy that you were able to join us. Byron and Dr. Walter, are you okay for another few minutes if we continue with a few questions? Okay.
Yes, we are.
What have you seen as the biggest points of fear when it comes to the different maybe myths or ideologies And what has medical teams, what are the messages that Channels of Hope, what messages have had the most success in Channels of Hope in kind of combating those myths or practices that aren't most healthy for the women and children?
Yes, I can speak a little bit about that. You know, as Byron was saying in his presentation, before Channels of Hope, of course, the faith leaders have their own ideologies or ideas about some health topics like family planning, for example, which is a very challenging topic for faith leaders and communities. And so Byron provided training sessions, the topics related to, and using some biblical verses, you know, to talk with the faith leaders. After the training sessions, now they are promoting, you know, they are open to talk about family planning with their congregations and promoting the use, or that they are encouraging the families to practice family planning, for example. The key message is that yes, the Lord, or children's, you know, is our inheritance, right? So, and it's because it's your inheritance, you should be take care of your inheritance because it's important for you. You know, it's a God gift, right? So when they reflect on what is the relevance, the importance of inheritance, they understand that they need to be careful with their families, for example.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Did I capture everything in the chat? Did anyone else want to come off of mute and ask any additional questions? It's a real privilege to have you with us, Byron and Dr. Walter, and of course, Joe, but we get less time with you too, as you're in Guatemala right now. So it's really nice to see
you know, Tammy,
screen.
I was reading about an example of the time when the congregations work together. We recently, we had the pandemic, you know, and the last year we had two hurricanes impacting the communities in Guatemala. So, and I remember well, and Byron is agree, I think, when we asked the support from the congregations, you know, they did not pay attention of what congregations you are attending, but they will be supporting the communities, the population in the shelters, for example, or disseminating information through the pandemic, you know, or visiting, conducting some home visits to provide information to prevent COVID-19 in our communities.
Thank you. Anything
the
else?
last thing I remember well is in Guatemala, the rural communities was very reluctant for the COVID-19 vaccination. A few months ago, the staff were deployed to work together with the faith leaders and other community leaders. And they explain the benefits, you know, the side effects and everything with total transparency to the faith leaders. And now they are promoting the vaccination, for example. After those community sessions, the vaccination rates increased only because the faith leaders were saying, okay, we understand the vaccine is important, so go to get our vaccines.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Walter. It's encouraging to see that it makes a difference when we empower faith leaders with these simple health messages and align them with the guiding principles from the Bible or from their holy scriptures.
Yeah.
Tammy, I just want to add too that this isn't medical teams methodology. It becomes the church's methodology. And so, we are then supporting the church or the faith community, whatever that faith is, in implementing this alongside with medical teams. But in the refugee camps in Tanzania, when there was the lockdown for COVID and we weren't going into the camp, the churches continued and they kept meeting together with the Muslim community in order to promote and implement what they had learned. So it's a tremendous thing that it's not ours, it becomes theirs. it's sustainable that way.
That's so important. Really is. Thank you, Joe. Any last questions before we close? Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening and participating. We hope you enjoyed connecting today. We'll just leave you with some of our upcoming events. And Chelsea will add a survey link in the chat, as we value your input. And we always value your feedback. So would like to share with you that on next Thursday, January 19th, we have a Healthy Women, Healthy World, the book club. And I believe the author is at that, will be there as well as that book club. The chapel broadcast is open and available to everyone on February 1st at 9 a.m. You just register via the same link. And the next time we gather for Community Matters will be on March 10th. And we will be talking about Field of Dreams, which is our signature event in Seattle, dinner and auction, but there will be opportunities for everyone to participate in different ways wherever you're located. So if that sounds exciting to you, we'd love for you to join us again on March 10th. And of course, reach out to any of us staff at any time with additional questions. We just feel so honored to partner with you, and thank you for being on this journey and making this urgent and important work possible. It is all because of you. So have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you all.